Today, we're joined by Dual Shoot, the creative entrepreneur behind Minneapolis's groundbreaking Smokin on the Runway, the only cannabis-inspired fashion show in Minnesota. Dual's combining his passions for photography, fashion, and cannabis culture to celebrate legalization while supporting local artists and businesses. Let's welcome Dual to the show. This program is part of the Scene Projects Podcast Network. Scene Project features interviews with independent musicians, comedians, and artists from across the Midwest. Become part of our community and support local art wherever you are. Welcome into another exciting episode of The Scene. I'm your host, Bubba Startz, and with me today is Dual Shoot. Welcome to the shoot, brother.
Hey, thank you for the introduction, Bubba. It's a pleasure to be on here, and I appreciate the invite.
Yeah, well, mutual friend, Zach Motor, up there, in Minnesota, let me know that he was going to be at your show and a big part of it. And I was like, man, you got to connect me with the man behind the scenes. I saw clips and stuff from the first show that you did, not last year, but earlier this year, right, in 25. And I think it's great the way you're kind of blending communities together. But before we get into all of that and the show coming up here in November, I'd like to know you a little bit and get to know kind of who you are as a man. So go ahead and give us a little bit of a rundown, and the floor is yours, man.
Yeah, a little bit about me. I'm from South Sudan, so I came here when I was 4 years old. But I have been a cannabis advocate for at least the last 10 plus years, mainly just personal use. But it's definitely had a big impact on me the last 5 years after going through some challenges and, quitting alcohol, which is probably like my biggest thing. But since then, about a couple years after that, after COVID, actually, started my own business, and really I've just been running with it since. A little bit about myself: I enjoy the outdoors a lot. Love basketball. Love sports just in general, especially basketball and football. Love spending time with the family. Pretty introverted myself, but I have found a passion in hosting events, which is kind of new to me. Only really been doing it on this scale for maybe the past 2 years, but before that would always host, friends coming together, cookouts with buddies and family. So there's always something that I enjoy, just kind of building those like little get-togethers, building community, and just having a good time with it. And that's kind of brought me to where I'm at here. That's just a little bit about myself, faith, man of faith. That's just, yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I love the backstory. Obviously, coming here as a young child, as a young man, right? And making a life here. Obviously, loving the outdoors. I would say it's easy to say that Minnesota is a lot different than South Sudan. And you were old enough to have memories of living in Africa too. So I kind of want to start there. Obviously we have listeners mostly in the United States, but from all over. Not a lot of people have ever been to the African continent, much less, most of them probably haven't even been out of the country. So can you kind of give us, some differences, which are obviously many, but maybe some of the similarities between life in Sudan and life here in the United States?
So I am a little old enough to remember some things, but it's foggy. One thing just to mention is, like, during that time, especially 4 and 3 years old, there was a lot of things happening in South Sudan. There's currently still a war, but it was worse back then. And during that period was when my family immigrated from South Sudan to Ethiopia and then made their way here as refugees in 1998. So that's kind of what was going on. So during that time, there was just like, a lot of war, a lot of moving, a lot of just relying on the people around you for community, um, for survival at that point. I'm blessed to be able to make it here, especially knowing now, what was going on there, and especially to make it here with, my whole family. It's even, can't say anything more of it being a blessing. The biggest differences between, I guess, there and here is, here there's a lot more structure. Back there, it was a lot more rural. So my family is like, farmers. So that is kind of like our background there. So we had some fields, some cattle. So life was a lot different than compared to here, where you have to get a job. Before, over there, you're growing what you have, taking care of, livestock, and going to the market. That's more of what it was. And you lived in family communities, so it wasn't everybody lived in different parts of the town. It was the whole family lived in that general area of, of land together to take care of everything. Um, but the the biggest difference, uh, there right now and here is definitely the opportunities. Stark difference. And I haven't been back, but I think that's something I definitely am looking forward to in the future once things stabilize more. But yeah, those are the biggest difference. But now it's growing, and it's really great to see it grow. I think basketball has helped revitalize it considerably with the South Sudan basketball team, and just a lot of other business opportunities that are starting to come into the region now that the war is not as bad as it used to be. So I'm hoping in the next few years that things change for the better to where you can make a trip out there, do some
And
things
I'm
back
I'm
there.
assuming that you have, extended family that still live there. Do you still have contact with some of your family in the area?
So a lot of my extended family, they're in South Sudan or in the region of like Juba, but a majority of them are in Ethiopia, some of the other African countries, maybe like Kenya. I still have some family in Australia, and a majority of my other family is actually here in the States.
Well, that's wonderful that you have so much of your family here. I have friends who immigrated to the United States who came by themselves, even at a young age, and never have a chance to really go back and see their family. And that can be very tough. I mean, I've lived out of country before. I was in Mexico for close to a year, and I didn't leave on the best of terms, and I didn't have the ability to just come back whenever I wanted to. When I came back, it was for good, right? But it was very hard to live even there. In Mexico, I think, is a lot more developed and stable country, obviously, than a country like Sudan is, especially in that time frame. Late 90s were not great for anyone, for a lot of African, and still a lot of African countries are torn apart by civil wars or just violence and mass violence in general. So I'm very grateful that you're here and that you have the opportunities that you do to now grow your own business and to help others kind of get out there. And I know you guys just had, for Smoking on the Runway, you just had your casting call. And I thought it was really great to see so many of the models who were just so excited about having the opportunity now to make their dreams come true, right? To be featured on a runway and to do that. So now you've you've taken the opportunities that you've been given, and now you've turned it into opportunities for others. And I think that's a really cool kind of full circle moment, and not necessarily maybe the full circle, because I think for you, it would be able to going back into making a difference in your home country and not just your community here, in the Minneapolis area, but to see it come around to creating opportunities for others. That's got to be a really good feeling for you.
No, it's the greatest feeling. It really re-energizes you. And like you made a great point, like not many people are, that fortunate to be able to make it here. Like I have 5 siblings and both of my parents are still here. That is the ultimate blessing that I could ask for. Like it is truly grateful for that, because that's not the story you hear much. And like you mentioned, being away from your family, just isolated like that, and it could be in a developed country or an undeveloped country, it's hard either way. It is very difficult. Your time in Mexico, how much time did you spend there?
Almost a year, just shy of a year.
And I'm sure that time, even though that was, like you mentioned, was difficult and made you want to come back. And I just can't say how grateful I am to have that. And to being able to, like the goal of the show was to showcase, local brands in the cannabis space that never really get that type of publicity, on a runway, getting that type of showcasing. There's only maybe a few handful of brands like maybe Cookies, LRG, Push Trees, who are very well known across the country as, mainly cannabis brands. And so that was an opportunity to create that here in Minnesota, having some experience as a photographer at Black Fashion Week. Some of the messages I get on online submissions from models, vendors, or designers are what definitely let me know that I'm definitely doing something, impactful, or I'm definitely doing the right thing right now, because it's like, oh, I love art. I love cannabis. I wanted to be a model. I didn't know this was there, and I want to be a part of this. It's really like, inspiring hearing a lot of other people's stories with their use of it, or how they got into modeling or becoming a designer. And we get the opportunity to have a platform for them to kind of join to do exactly that. I think one of the best parts about it is hearing stories from different people telling me like, hey, I met the business that I work for there. I met some of my closest friends there at that show. I just had that message before, and I'm like, yo, that is great to know, because, building that community of like-minded people who have those same goals of just kind of like, helping each other, uplifting each other, and you're getting responses from people like, hey, I met my closest friends at your show or at your model call, and we're still, very close now, and it's been 2+ years. Like, especially during a time when it's very digitalized and, many people are not really as close as they were, there's a lot of isolation going on. That's just great. That's like the best part about it.
Well, and you're doing a great job of bringing people out of that digital world and bringing them together in these physical spaces. And that's something that the Scene projects especially have really strived to do in our short time. We've only been a podcast and a brand for, 18 months or so, but we've proven ourselves as someone who is a connector. And that's what I would consider you as well. Someone who knows a lot of people, but not just knows them, knows how to bring them together and to connect businesses and brands with other people that are in that space, and maybe bringing together two spaces that you wouldn't usually put together, right? Fashion is usually seen as something that is kind of a list or on a different level, in the cannabis industry is very still underground. Even though it's legal, it's not talked about. It's still a little taboo, and you're kind of bringing them together on an equal footing. And I think that's really cool to see it come together. I myself, a cannabis user. Dual, the reason I was in Mexico is because I got felonies set for selling marijuana before we had a medical program in South Dakota or anything. Now I have a license where I can go and grow and use it and all these things. We don't have recreational use here, but just the juxtaposition, right, of where times have changed, right? This was 10 years ago that I had caught my charges. So, a whole decade has gone by, and now it's time to ditch some of the stigmas, right? And I feel like that's what you're doing, and bringing the two worlds together, that we're really seeing the world open up a little bit for us.
No, and I completely agree. And like, especially in your situation, I know South Dakota from having friends and family back there, catching a charge myself back in 2018 for cannabis myself, lost a lot and had to go through a process of building it back again, right? I'm sure you understand that as well as anybody when you go through that trial of, this is something that helps you, but it's so like, frowned upon that, you are being treated as somebody that you really are not. I'm not over here harming anybody with it. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, but um, did and I guess I'm maybe going off track, but like when you were going through those situation and when you went back to Mexico and when you came here, is that something that you had to go through the legal process with? And now
Oh
that
yeah.
you're
Oh
like,
yeah, I did 2 years in prison, Dual. I
yeah,
did 2 years, and 2 years of my life that I lost, and then 2 years after I got out and off of parole,
right.
we had passed the medical program, and I was able to go and get a license to grow it. So you're like, okay, well, that was worth 2 years of my life behind bars. So yes, I'm very open about that experience. Now, personally, did it change my life for the better? Yes, it did. The 2 years in prison, I learned a trade. I met my wife. A lot of great things happened. So, in one hand, I'm grateful that I turned it into a positive, but also
Mhm.
that was 2 years of my life away from my children. Of which I had three at the time. That I'll never get that time with them back, right? And I don't think anybody for cannabis use. And granted, I had a lot, and it was, distribution charges but if I could have gone to the store and bought it like I can now, I would have never gone to the lengths to get it and have as much as I did to catch distribution charges for it. Right. So it would have changed my life if we had already had a medical program, even just a medical, not even recreational use. If we had had a medical program, I would have never gone to prison. Right.
Right.
And it's easy for me to say that with 1,000% confidence because I've been out, and it's not, I mean, of course I'm not trying to go back to prison, and I'm not trying to go back and lose more of my life to this. But for a simple plan, I just don't believe that anybody should be losing years of their life for it, and to be associated with criminals who are selling fentanyl and methamphetamines and cocaine, right? Like, to be pulled into that group of people is just like, well, that wasn't me at all, right? So, I'm very, I don't know, I ride that line. I don't want it to be illegal. I don't regret necessarily the time that I had to spend. Is it a little bit of a shame that I missed out on 2 years with my children? Yes. Did I turn it into a positive? Yes, I did, but I shouldn't have had to, right? It should have been legal in the first place and to where we are now. And I would have never made the decisions that I did, for 5 years prior to that. It wouldn't have been an option. So I have a very special relationship with the cannabis plant and with how it's changed over the course of the last 10 years in society.
They call it the plant of life for good reason. It can change so much, and you're not a violent person, so why are you being treated as a violent offender, serving that much time for something that is currently being used for medicinal purposes for generations? Um, People were using it before in every single, how would you say, in every single nation and like civilization before this, cannabis has always been around as a medicinal purpose. So why is it now that you are serving that much time for it, where now that you're out and you see like people are making a living off of it? Why, you shouldn't have to, you shouldn't have had to go through that. I what I do commend you for is like what you mentioned. You made it into a positive. I served like maybe about 2 months, and then was on probation for 2 years. You made a positive after that situation. After you lost so much time, like you mentioned, with your family, you didn't become, how would you say, angry about it. You were like, man, that was a terrible experience. I hope nobody else has to go through that. So let me advocate. Let me create something positive out of it. And that's what you're doing right now. And that's, you know, I think that's something that we have similarities on, because one thing that I feel like the plant has done a lot for is give people another option for healing. I've seen my mom go through opioids because of back surgery where she couldn't move. So she had to be on pharmaceuticals. And I've seen how destructive that could be. Not into a point where it's like addictive or anything else like that, but it's the fact that she could have had some holistic medicine that could have helped her with those pains, or even had those options. But just the negative stigma against it, people who are from the 60s or 70s, they saw the war on drugs. They're terrified of cannabis. But now you're starting to see some of the older people accepting it, using it because it's now legal. But they could have had this opportunity the whole time to help alleviate some of those things. But yeah, those are the fact of the matter is, it is here now, which is great, right? I'm gonna definitely enjoy it for what it is and continue to create these type of opportunities and these type of community events to help showcase the people who are thriving with it. Because everyone that I meet, or a majority of the people I meet, especially in the artistic community, where it's still kind of taboo, but you can have a wine, but you can't have a joint, like, what I'm saying, or like as a soccer mom, or these type of negative connotations around it, like, oh, you're gonna turn into this person, or you're just going to be
and what I love about now is that because we have the legalization and we've been able to, like, you don't have to smoke cannabis anymore to get the feeling, right? Or to get the good effects of it, right? There's so many THC drinks, and there's topicals, and there's all of these things that we could have been so much further down the line technologically with the plant and with its not just use, but with its application, right? That we're on the tip of the spear now, right? We're just at the tip of the spear, and where it goes from here is anyone's guess, really. We know how hemp can be used. South Dakota is actually the biggest producer of hemp in the country, in the world. So that's something that we take a lot of pride in, but we face all of these stigmas still to this day. And I think it comes down to not just like conferences and sit down meetings where you're educating people. It takes events like yours to really break the stigma, where you can bring two worlds that you wouldn't typically put together, and to show that, and to have people start to look at things differently. And that's why I think what you're doing is so important, and why I think we need a lot more events like this. We know that music and cannabis have gone together for a long time, but now to see fashion and cannabis, and then, a lot more things are going to come from this. So I think people seeing your event and getting to know, getting to know it as something else, right, other than a taboo, is so important. So take us into what the show kind of pertains. I'd really like to kind of cover a little bit before I have to let you go today. Like, what are people going to get when they show up on November 9th to Smokin' on the Runway at Hook and Ladder?
So this is going to be your first time there. This is going to be our 5th show. So if you've seen any of our content from previously, you're going to get a spectacular show. Some of the most creative designers in Minnesota. One thing that I do want to mention, and congratulations to South Dakota for being the largest hemp manufacturer, because hemp is one of the most sustainable resources there is, especially for clothing. It doesn't have as much waste. It is more durable, so it lasts longer, and it can be applied in so many different ways, from clothing to oils to textiles. And what we're doing there is showcasing that. So most of the designers there, either they work cannabis brands already that are just getting the showcase that they deserve, or they are, it's going to be the high fashion edition. So they're going to be very cut and sew, one of ones, where they are going to put either hemp material into their fabrics and into their pieces, or they're going to have some symbolism or some color that is cannabis related. So now it's getting other designers to really kind of incorporate that into their designs. So you're going to see some one of a kind fashion. You're going to have like a front row seat in something very, how would you say, very media like, right? There's going to be extra photographers. It's going to be lights, the cameras, action. There's going to be multiple activations. Like you mentioned, we try to have the designer aspect. We have some live painters because, like you mentioned, art and cannabis have always been one. We're going to have some live entertainment for some music. And then we're going to actually have those same designers, being able to have tables to for the people coming who want to actually connect with them, who want to get some of their brands. And what we're also going to have is we're going to have outside, we're going to have plenty of Minnesota local brands who are going to be sampling their products. So if you haven't had an edible, if you haven't had a drink before, you can get some education on it, because we'll have some service providers there that can help you. Like, let me give you an example. Kayla Fearing on Healing Fear Consulting. She helps people get from opioids to cannabis. She'll educate you on the whole endocannabinoid system. We'll have some nurses there to help educate, first time users as well. I only knew cannabis as smoking since I was in high school, right? So that's what I've known. But with this, you'll be able to connect with Minnesota brands that have been around for the past 6-10 years, educating people on cannabis, CBD, and you'll be able to actually try their products there, firsthand, and get real education on it, instead of what you probably seeing online, or if you're just kind of curious. That's what I like to say. You're curious about it, you want to see what it's like, and you can go and experience it all. You can go smoke outside. They'll have some people doing samples, and you can really get to experience all four of the activations. You get to enjoy the show. You'll get some education. You'll go enjoy some live artists, some music as well, and really connect with everyone there. And the best part about the show, we have people there from 21 to 60 enjoying the same thing, communicating, building community, and it's all races, and everybody there is there to have a good time with the plant and the community they love.
Bringing people together. I would say that cannabis has been doing it for a lot longer, but for the last 2 years, Dual, you've been doing a heck of a job of it. I absolutely love everything I'm hearing about the show. I love that you are bringing not just the fashion and cannabis together, but you're bringing these companies out to educate. So you're bringing people out to entertain. You're giving these designers a chance to talk about their art, not just to see it up there, but to actually communicate with the community. And I think what you're doing is just incredible, man. I can't wait to come up there on November 9th at the Hook and Ladder. It's going to be a fantastic show. We got the ticket link scrolling down there. There will be tickets available on site as well. So if you don't know if you're going to make it or not, you can come up at the last minute and grab those. But you got some real great VIP seating there. So I want to recommend everybody find you on Instagram as well, Smoking on the Runway. And Dual, anything else that you want to plug before I let you go?
One more thing that I want to plug in: the Hook and Ladder, a nonprofit arts and community space right now that's been around for the past 10 years. They have done extraordinary work being bringing in the community and being an advocate for the disenfranchised in a way, right? Especially in the arts and theater community, from cannabis to the LGBT community. And one thing that I just want to say is, currently right now they're doing a fundraiser to keep themselves, operational for the next 10 years. They currently have it in their bio. If you go to the hookminneapolis.com or the Hook Minneapolis on IG. It's in their bio. If you can donate, I think they're trying to raise $75,000 by the end of October. If 7,500 people who love cannabis, art, and who want to keep an independent venue going, it's $10 a person. But I just wanted to put that out there to help continue to support them. This is going to be our second show there. I had our anniversary event there, and the Hook has been nothing but the best, partners to work with. They have the greatest staff there, and it's just been a pleasure to work with them. And I want to continue to work with them for a while to go. So if you can share that and, tell a friend, and you can donate what you can, that's all I'm saying. Definitely help them out and can keep having events like this there, because once you see the space, you'll understand why, you want to keep it there.
Well, shout out to the Hook and Ladder. I've seen the name a lot, but I didn't realize they were run nonprofit, and it just changes it because they can invite people like us, both of us, that don't have a ton of money to rent a venue and to do these things. But really, we're not trying to make money doing what we're doing. Would it be nice to have expenses paid for? Yes, but usually that largest expense is renting the venue. So
Right.
working with a place like the Hook and Ladder, huge shout out to them. We will be sharing it on our channels and then helping them to raise some funds. So Dual, thanks for giving me some of your time today, man. It was great to talk about the show. I can't wait to meet you in person in November. And thanks for being part of the scene.
Thank you, Bubba. And I just want to get a shout out to the team as well. I know I can't forget about that. There's Kara, there's Nyagag, there's Shamika who's helping out, and so many volunteers and sponsors who have Lake Street Lift was one of our grant sponsors, Foundry Nation, another sponsor there. And the team at Balance, they have always been great, and from the product sponsors as well. So just want to give a last shout out to them before going off. I really appreciate the time, Bubba, and thank you to Zach Motor for the warm introduction and the connection there. And I can't wait to see you at our next show.